All right. So whether it's at a hackathon with only 1 weekend to build something presentable, or you have an idea for an app that you really want to test out before really investing in it, a lot of us have been in a situation where we want to quickly build something to get the job done. So during the normal prototyping development process, you plan out what your app should do and how it should function, research the feasibility of the idea, map out your architecture, pick your tools, and build a clean and organized prototype, right? So for the few of you that have your cameras on, if you can raise your hands if you actually do that. Cool, so I don't either. Oh, okay, well maybe Robert does. Okay, all right. Well, you guys are kind of out there. So when building out a quick prototype, most of us just want to open up an IDE and start coding. So I kind of figure that's what we're going to talk about and how we can use Flutter and Firebase to get to that point. So given this, like I said, I'm going to talk about Firebase and Flutter. So both of these are easy to use and address different development problems. Flutter is for client-side development and Firebase is for the backend. So while I'm not going to do a deep dive into either of these, what I hope to do is at least help you leave with a vocabulary to look into both of these tools further when you're ready to use them. So first, let's talk about Flutter. It's a UI toolkit that uses the Dart programming language for building native apps for multiple platforms on top of C++ using a 2D engine called Skia, which is the same graphical engine used by Chrome, Android, and a few other platforms, all from a single SDK. Since everything is built from a single code base, you can create your prototypes for multiple systems, such as Android or iOS, without requiring specific developer knowledge about each platform. So this is kind of a cool slide to throw in here too. So Flutter is actually completely open source, so it's not just Google is working on it, but pretty much anyone that wants to contribute to it can. So if you end up running into a bug or something along the lines that like you want to add a feature or whatnot, you're able to fork this, put in your code, send in a pull request, and actually get it integrated into the actual SDK. I'm just kind of a big fan of that. I come from the traditional mobile world where Android and iOS are very, hey, you get what we give you. So it's kind of nice to have that. So I like to throw it off or show it off a little bit. So aside from Flutter being cross-platform, you're probably wondering why you should use it for app prototyping, especially since other tools exist that do similar things. So like most development decisions, the answer is basically, it depends. While Flutter isn't the only tool that can work cross-platform, it is designed from the ground up specifically for creating apps quickly. It's able to easily tie into device hardware using plugins and packages that can be imported into your project and use widgets, which we'll dig into a little bit more here soon, to create UI components programmatically rather than requiring something like a layout file or storyboard. One other feature of Flutter that I think is just super valuable is hot reloading. So when you're actually developing your app and you want to just, I don't know, test like a color change or something really simple, you don't have to reinstall the entire app. You can just save the code and the IDE will automatically let the emulator or your phone know that something has changed and it'll just come up on your screen. So it kind of takes away that whole issue with iOS and Android development where you're waiting for everything to rebuild and reinstall and go through that whole process. So it kind of adds to that rapid aspect of it. So following up on the it depends answer, there's also going to be times when Flutter isn't the right solution for you, and it's better to figure that out early in the development process. So while games are a lot of fun to develop, Flutter just isn't really at the point where you can make a good game quickly enough to call it a rapid prototype. You'll also need to write a lot of the components from scratch that other platforms kind of just give you out of the box right now. Additionally, calling native APIs directly just isn't really a thing. So normally you would write native Swift and Kotlin code and then use platform channels to kind of communicate back and forth to the native level through a bridging process. So while it isn't necessarily a deal breaker, it is kind of just more of a pain than just throwing something together that already exists. So the next thing to consider is also audio support, or rather the lack thereof. While audio isn't supported by native widgets, there are third-party plugins out there that can provide you with this functionality. Which is going to go ahead and bring me to my last point here. There's a ton of plugins for Flutter. Oh, I just saw my last point. I got another one here. There's a ton of plugins for Flutter. Some third-party libraries that developers have grown to love, like Lodi for animations, just aren't supported right now. So you'll kind of have to weigh the necessity of things like that versus working with what Flutter has before you decide to use the tool. And then finally here, Flutter doesn't have support for additional form factors like watches, televisions, and cars. So right now, Flutter actually has like limited support for Wear OS, but nothing for TV OS. So if you're kind of working on other platforms for like televisions and watches and whatnot, Flutter may not be quite right for you at this point. So like we've talked about already, one of the big draws to Flutter for rapid prototyping is that it's an easy-to-use tool for creating custom UIs. Over the next few slides, I want to give a brief overview of how Flutter can be used to build UIs, and then go into where you can learn more about what Flutter has available. So the first thing I want to touch on is how Flutter can be used on multiple platforms, which we kind of talked a little bit about already, but we'll go into it just a little bit more here. So we've all seen apps made with multi-platform tools where they just don't quite look right compared to the system standard UI. So like apps on Android that look like they were developed specifically for iOS and all the weird UI patterns that go with that. What makes Flutter handy here is that it's able to tell what platform it's on, so you can apply the proper UI elements for your app based on the OS. You can actually see that in the example here on the screen. So this is the same exact app running on both iOS and Android emulators, or simulators, however you want to get into the details there. But it's able to tell, hey, this is the iOS side of it and the Android side, and they'll actually look like they're more native to that platform. Which brings me to our next point. When you're working with Flutter, everything is a widget, and all UI is described by widgets in a tree structure. So you can think of them like Lego bricks, where basically you connect them together to build whatever you want, and you just have really standard small components that can make these giant elaborate things. So while there's hundreds of widgets out there, I want to go over just a few of them at a high level to give you an idea of the fundamental part of Flutter. So you can't really start with anything in programming without Hello World, right? So all Flutter apps use the main function as their entry point, and in there you can initialize various components and start your application. So you can see there's a center widget in this example, which will center your content in the middle of the device screen, which kind of makes sense, and a text widget that you can also probably guess is going to show you some text. So all this is going to do is put basically Hello World in the middle of your screen. Oh, and it looks like we have comments here. Let me check, see what's going on. I didn't catch all that. That is news to me. I didn't realize there was a Lodi plugin already made. So awesome. I guess there is one. But for example, there's a few of them that aren't always going to be available. What's SDK? So it's the software development kit. So it's basically the tools that you would use to use Flutter when you're trying to write code in it. All right. If there's any other questions, cool. Otherwise, I'll move on to the next part here. So the next component I want to go over is the list, since honestly, most apps are essentially just list and detail screens. So as you can see here in the demo image, there's a lot of stuff that you can do with the list, such as swiping to show an available action. But to keep everything simple for this example, we're just going to look at the basic code for a list of items. So the first widget here is the scroll bar. While it's not necessary, it does provide, as you can probably guess, a scroll bar on the side of a list, so users know how far along in the data they are. After that is the actual list view widget, which has some properties for like how the list should look, followed by a list of data objects. Yeah, a list data object of widgets to be displayed. So at this point, you're probably thinking that I'm lying to you about how simple this is. So I actually have the emulator up, and of course, I updated my example app. So this code is no longer what's in that, but that's okay. We're going to make this work. Let's see, are you still able to see my screen, or is it showing my slides?
I see your ID now.
Okay, cool. So let's see here. So here's the scroll bar like I was talking about, as well as the list view. Padding is simply just, okay, here's the attribute name, and then you give it a value. And then the children are what's actually going to show up in the list. So for this one, rather than it being the list data object like we saw on the slides that I need to update because I just updated this today, we actually have a for loop that's going to go through and it's just going to create each of the items. So this is going to be a list tile. So it's just the item inside the list. It has a circle avatar with just a number in it for wherever it falls in the list, and then text saying like, hey, here's the index that we're looking at. So I bring that up. This is the gallery app, which I'll kind of go into in more detail here pretty soon. So if we go into material, which is the iOS side of it, and list, we can actually see that this code is exactly what's coming up on the screen right here. So it's going to be 21 or 20 objects that will come through, and it's just going to say, hey, item 13, 14, so forth. And that's all the code for it. If you want to have a subtitle, you can also do that. All we have to do is set a global property in this class. to say that it is 2 items. So I can just go ahead and switch to that. And now we have that secondary text just showing up. So relatively straightforward, which is pretty nice, especially if you're coming from like the Android world where you're working with recycler view and having to use actual view holder patterns and all that, or before recycler view and the view holder pattern. It's kind of nice just to have something that's super easy and actually works. So let's see here. All right, so I'm just going to bring you over to the next thing, which is cards, because they're more often than not, this is what you're going to have in your list. You're not going to just have a real simple text line that says, hey, this is item number 1. So, so we might as well get in a little bit more detail on that. So this is the code used for that demo image in the last slide. And you can see that it's also pretty lean. The size box means that each card will have a predefined height, and that size box will wrap a child card widget, which sets some general properties for the card, like the shape and basic behaviors. Next up is the child of that child, which in this case is an inkwell. The inkwell is kind of an interesting widget, as it's what the card uses to figure out interactive tap areas, and can be used for other little fun effects and whatnot. And then, oops, there it goes. And then finally, that inkwell has its own child, which is the actual content of the card that the user is going to see. So at this point, you should see a pattern of widgets forming a hierarchical tree in Flutter, which is pretty important for understanding how the platform works. Everything basically breaks down into this kind of tree pattern of widgets kind of nested in each other, like the little Russian dolls. So kind of now that we've given a general overview of Flutter and widgets and all that kind of good stuff, which, and we can kind of get into some of the more interesting stuff. So this is the gallery app that I was just showing you. So we're going to actually just kind of dive into it, what's available. This is what it used to look like when I made this presentation compared to what it looks like now. So that's why things are a little bit off, but that's okay. Oops, let's see here. So the way this is broken down is it's basically a demo of various components that you can use. And you can just kind of steal from it too when you're trying to put together a prototype, or you just want to take a feature that you think is cool and throw it into your app, which is kind of nice. So what we're looking at here first are the material components. So we can see, hey, if I wanted to throw in a button, this is what it looks like. Here's how it actually functions. They have this cool little button up here, which will actually show you the code and how it's applied to that part in the gallery, which I just think is super awesome. You can also click this little button here in the corner, I believe. Yep, and it'll actually take you over to the documentation for that class as well. So you can get more detail about it if you're interested in using it. Okay, cool. My back button actually went to the app. I was worried about that. Oops. Let's see. There we go. So yeah, all the different things that are in here. So you've got your normal buttons, you've got cards. As you go through here, you can again see the actual code as it's applied there, or if you want to go into the IDE. Everything is completely open sourced, as we were looking at the list demo here earlier. But then that also just means it's on GitHub, which is nice, which of course I didn't bring it up. Yeah, just a Flutter/gallery, same exact app. They actually just recently added the progressive web app version of it as well. So if you wanted to see how things are going to work outside of mobile, it's kind of a nice little extra set of features there, and then adapting for tablets and bigger screens as well. On top of that, though, so you got your normal components here. Great, that's fun. Cupertino is the other one here. So this is going to be your iOS styling. So if you wanted to say, let's see what's very specifically iOS. Sliders. So these are very much like the ones that look like they should be on iOS. It'll show you how you would implement these, and you can kind of check what platform you're on to display a slider for either Material or Cupertino. And again, all the code is there. I don't think this one checks to see what it's on. I'd have to go over that in detail. Cool. But really, the things that interest me a lot more is that we actually have case studies in here. So if you know, hey, I'm going to make a retail app, you can go through here. This is a super, super secure authentication screen example. So we can go ahead and log in with whatever password and whatever. But it'll show you how you can use a staggered grid view. You can click on things to add them to the cart. It kind of gives you an idea of how you can use animations, view the items that are in there, and how you can manipulate the data behind it. So if you were doing something similar, it'd be real easy to just kind of lift this and use it for your own applications to get something built quickly. And then on top of that, let's see what else did they give us here. Rally is a little financial app that they put together. So if you wanted to steal some of the design elements from this, also completely open sourced, so you can grab any of the components out of this and how they all work together. Charts is actually a super useful one too, because I don't know, there's been a lot of times where I actually want to put charts into an app, and especially on the Android side, you have to go find a library that actually does it for you and it actually works and figure out how that goes together. And it's just always kind of a pain. So it's nice having this available as a showcase that you can throw into your own stuff. But yeah, there's just a whole set of these things. They also have a base template app, which is just your general, some text, buttons, some other stuff here, navigation bar, just general components that you might want to throw into a standard starting app. Cool beans. All right. So, that's the next thing to talk about here, is the Flutter Cookbook. So on top of being able to use the gallery app, there's going to be more things that you want to throw into your apps that are just not quite going to fit into that. So like networking is going to be a good example where you can just say, hey, I want to parse JSON or make authentication requests, so forth. They actually have all this available already. So you can just kind of go find it, run through the little tutorial, and steal their code snippets to make things work when you want it to work. And I'm a big fan of copy pasting when I'm learning something. so it's kind of nice just to have that available. I was actually just in here. Let's see this one. They had one for Bluetooth, and I don't know where that is anymore. But that's okay. While I'm thinking about it too, I'm going to kind of go off of the presentation. Hub.dev is actually one that Robert had linked to earlier. But this is where you're going to find a lot of your plugins. So one that I was looking at earlier this week. Oops. Flutter Blue. Really nice little Bluetooth stack plugin. Basically anything that people have made tends to end up here. So if you want to use other libraries and whatnot that are out there, the community is just super active and basically puts everything out there for people to use. So this pub.dev site is amazing. So it's totally worth checking out. Okay, cool. So the next one I had here, I'm actually a huge fan of maps. So it just seemed like a really fun plugin to talk about and go over. So this is one that we actually make. Google has all this stuff with maps that they just kind of love to throw together. So it's actually super easy to throw maps into your applications, which is great. Let's see here. So I'm going to pull up the code for that and show you how super easy this is to work with. So let's see here. Let me move some stuff aside so we can actually see it. So build is generally going to be kind of your entry point here for the application. All we're going to do is basically say, hey, the body of this is going to be a Google map. We have this on maps created callback, which is going to set all the initial properties, and the initial camera position, which tells it, go ahead and just start at 0, 0 in the middle of the ocean. And then add all the markers and circles that are being created in this on maps created. So what we have here is just a map of markers and circles. And then we're going to go ahead and initialize those with a general data set that we've already created in locations.dart, which, oh, is it this one? Oh, no, it's this JSON. I don't know, it's somewhere it's kind of hidden from us, so that's okay. But yeah, essentially you're just going to create your markers and circles, throw them in there. When you actually click on those, it'll put up an info window and a toast when you tap on them and just say, hey, this is the region that we're in. Initialize the circles, put them into that list, and then display them. So if we come back to our emulator, all of this code right here, it is the 73 lines with imports and brackets, is going to be, assuming this opens, my computer is just kind of crawling. It'll be this whole string. So this is the entirety of the app once you have those locations in, which is pretty nice. So you can actually just do the whole normal zoom in. If I click on one of these, it tells you the region of it, as well as puts with the actual address. So when we're not on quarantine and lockdown, this is the actual office I would go into. Let's see, and then you can see that we've actually got these little circles drawn with a blue outline and a green circle inside of those, which would be these two colors here, the fill color and the stroke color. So yeah, I don't know, it's kind of cool. I like maps, and so it seems like a fun example to throw in there for people. Let's see here. So the next one I was going to talk about was, oops, not that yet. Flare Flutter. So what this is a really cool animation library that's out there. This is actually a non-Google one, which is kind of fun. So I'm not just like pandering and throwing all of our stuff out there. But what this is essentially you go to their site and they have this cool little animation tool. I think it took me about 20 minutes of watching some video on YouTube to learn how to use this. And once you have that, it's really easy to take those animations and put it in your application. So if you want to have animated icons and all kinds of fun stuff to just really make your apps pop, especially if you're working on like a hackathon where you want things to look really good, it's kind of nice to have. So this just uses pretty standard stuff like keyframes, and you tell it what kind of animation it's going to do. So it'll just kind of draw these out here. And once you create your animation, it'll export that out as a JSON file, and that's what you're going to include in your app. So pause that, and I have that open as well. So this is all the code for displaying everything on the screen, which is kind of nice. Let me pull that up. So all this is going to do is loop the animation for drawing this little star guy out here. So it's going to call this flare actor. It's going to load in the JSON file. Actually, is it JSON? I think it is. It's this FLR file, but it's kind of normal vector animation looking file. This is going to have an animator in it called Go, which is going to tell it how it actually should move through the different steps. And all we have to do is call or throw in the animation name, and it'll start running that. Since it's set to repeat, it'll just keep drawing on the screen over and over and over again. It's super easy to throw into there if you want to have animated icons and some other kind of just flashy stuff. Let's see here. So that's kind of the end of the actual Flutter part before I get into the Firebase and Flutter part. Are there any other questions while we're here? And if anyone wants to dig into anything else?
Actually, I have a question.
Yep.
I'm wondering about performance. So I work with a company who uses React Native for iOS and Android, and mostly it works okay, but there are some performance issues. A lot of times, if you make something look real nice on iOS, like rendering, then it looks less nice on Android. Do you find with Flutter that you actually get maybe not the same level of performance that you would get if you were developing like truly natively, but is it better than, say, React Native?
You know, I've actually not had too much problem with the actual performance on it. Again, everything's kind of written in C++, and it's using that Skia graphical engine, which is what Android uses natively. So it's been relatively smooth for me as far as I've been able to tell, but I haven't done anything super graphics intensive yet either, so who knows? If I started using videos and more animations, I could potentially see something wrong, but I haven't run into that point yet.
All right, and I have one more question.
Yep.
What do you use to, are you able to automate testing for Flutter? And if so, what do you use?
Yep, so let's see. I actually probably, let me see if I still have it in here or not. I think I actually took the test out of this because I was running into some issues and I started trying to get it to run right before starting here on this presentation. Let me see. So they actually do have standard tests that you can use in here. So they have integration tests, they have standard Android test, test driver. It's JUnit test as far as I can remember. Let's see. Oops. So yeah, if you go into this gallery app, you can actually see what the different testing setup is and how you'd actually use everything as well. So you can do testing like you would on any other mobile app.
All right, thank you.
Yep. I'm just kind of curious actually to see if they have any more detail in here or not.
Maybe about performance, not necessarily compared to React Native, but you were showing the emulator.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard, I was also developing Android applications as well, that the emulator deploys very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And also the hot code deploy is quick as well. So the developer experience is good compared to Android. I don't know how is it with React Native, to be honest. I haven't done React Native.
So I'm going to just go ahead and install this fresh. Let's see here. I mean, we might as well go through the process. So I have, let's see, four IDEs running in the emulator and a video chat. So take this with a grain of salt. But I just killed the app. I'm going to go ahead and install it. Let's just see how quickly it goes with everything going on. Just because I'm curious and I think we have a couple minutes. If not, call me out on it. It's cool too. So we'll back up and going. Let's see. Nope, not quite yet. So this is a fresh install after I've disconnected the IDE. So it'll end up doing this whole process. But once we have that going, let's see here. Do we have any? Where is it here?
Regarding IDE, Visual Studio Code is supported as well, right? And some other IDEs.
So I believe so on Visual Studio, but I haven't played with that. Xcode definitely is though. So
Xcode.
yeah,
What
I
was
want to
the?
use those, but I just haven't tried it yet, so I'm not 100% on that.
Yeah, gotcha.
So of
Yeah,
course
if
it's
you-
those though.
Yeah, if it's quick prototyping, then you need to go ahead.
Yep.
What was the name of that financial app? It was in the Flutter gallery.
Yeah, it's actually in the gallery. So if you bring this up, it's this rally option.
I have a Flutter gallery app installed, and it looks different. Maybe it's not. It's another gallery.
So it might be the same one. They just changed it like last week.
Oh, okay. Because I saw similar screens when you were browsing within the widgets when you were looking for the list view.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't ever seen this financial.
Gotcha. So does yours look like this?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's the older version. I just upgraded
Okay.
today, which is all right. Everything is broken on me.
All right. I'm gonna check that. Rally.
Let's see. Okay. Yeah. This is just going to take a sweet time, so I'm going to just stop it. It's not that big of a deal. Usually it's a lot faster. I think my computer is just kind of yelling at me, and it sounds like I've got a little jet engine going with my fan. So it just kind of is what it is.
One note before the Firebase section. The last one, what you showed, it was flare animations, and I'm thinking about the Flutter Clock contest, and all of the winners were using animations, and many of those were using flare.
Oh, gotcha.
So I didn't use it, and then I regretted not to dig into it. So it's a nice extra for winning.
I have two questions.
Yep.
I guess to continue from Jen's question, I guess does Flutter provide some type of like performance profiler that like iOS has for their for developing iOS apps?
I don't know. I would have to get back to you on that one.
All right, no worries. And also, huh?
Oh, I was gonna say maybe Robert knows since he's also been playing around with this, but it is a little bit outside of my wheelhouse.
I haven't used it, but yes, there is app profiling. I believe you can use it straight from Android Studio when you're developing. And of course, there are other ways of testing the iOS version with Xcode, but that's not anything I know about. I'm trying to think. I believe it's at the end of Flutter in Action, where he's wrapping up talking about testing. He does a good job talking about the testing, but he ends it with talking about using the test logging for performance profiling.
I see. Okay.
So there's considerable discussion of the subject. My general impression is that performance is one of the advantages Flutter has significantly over React Native, but I can't prove it. A, because I'm not a React Native developer, so your mileage may vary. I will say there, as Paul said at the very beginning, there are some apps Flutter is not the right tool for. There's at least one article out there from an Indian development house that tried to port their native code, which was an intense physical simulation system, to Flutter, and they kept hitting wall after wall. I feel just sad. They were very definitely going, Flutter is not the cure-all for everything. It has its place, but man, was this not it.
I think, yeah, if you are into like physical simulations or any real native intensive stuff, then the widget hierarchy supports that you would write, just with Android, you would write the speed specific parts in native code. Like with Android, you write it in NDK, and then you can umbrella it under a widget. But maybe that's what they were trying. I haven't seen that. Or they tried it to like port it under Dart.
They tried to port it to Dart. Yeah.
Gotcha. What I know about just the design of the Flutter, the Skia and the widget set, it was designed with speed in mind. And when Paul was showing these widget hierarchies, they looked, sometimes they can look very deep. But the thing is that the algorithms are linear. So when they are optimizing the widget hierarchy or doing any manipulations with it or displaying it, it's supposed to be fast due to the linear scaling of these algorithms, and so they don't even prevent you to create. They encourage you to modularize and create widget sets, and you can go deep with these hierarchies. But yet again, I don't know the comparison with React Native.
I can give a logical comparison with React Native based on the way Flutter is built versus the way React Native is built. React Native uses the native controls on Android or iOS. So anytime you're instantiating a control or altering a control, you have to switch contexts between the single-threaded JavaScript engine and the native multi-threaded UI engine, which is rendering the widget. So there's a lot of back and forth between those two worlds. Flutter eliminates that because it is drawing the widgets for you. Anything which looks like an Android button, that's not an Android button. That's drawn by the Skia rendering engine underneath Dart and Flutter. So it's not doing that back and forth when it's drawing the widgets or the controls or acting as UI. That's not to say it doesn't have to do that jump whenever it wants to access the GPS, or the location services, or any other native API. Then it has to do the same jump over the wall game that React Native has to do. It's just simply there's a large class of problems which it is solving in a more straightforward manner by taking total control of the screen. And honestly, I think I saw this kind of approach done a long time ago when it was Mac versus Windows. There were two kinds of cross-platform libraries. Those which use the native controls and those which tried to draw it all themselves. And the ones that drew it all themselves could not pull it off because, the two operating systems were going gangbusters, introducing new controls, doing stuff their own way. The third-party companies who were out there trying to keep up just couldn't. Google has the resources to keep that game going. So I actually think they might be able to pull that strategy off, which will be a first in terms of cross-platform support.
Cool.
Just my 2 cents.
Nice explanation. Oh, my last question is, the last I heard is that Flutter isn't ready for production apps when it comes to the web. We say that this is the case still at this point.
So I haven't heard of anyone really taking it to production yet. It's mostly been mobile centric, but they're definitely working on it. There's one thing with even the Firebase stuff, we haven't gotten everything ported over to web yet either. It's been very mobile first. So I don't know, your mileage might vary.
And when you
there are some small groups which are using it. I ran across a graduate student in Spain who was actually using it for his thesis project work. There may be very small companies are using it. I certainly wouldn't recommend it for production use at this time, but it's very close and getting closer to the point where it'll be possible.
Regarding the support, if you are browsing the plugins in the dev site, the package site, am I on? Yeah.
You are.
You should be able to see. So it tells you what platform are supported, iOS, Android, or web. So like I was looking at Bluetooth or GPS module plugins, and you have several. Then you can see which one supports web or not. Not all of them supports web yet. It can tell you. That's a very important aspect of the plugins. If you want to go for the web, I want to go for the web.
Yeah, seriously. Like on pub.dev, I've seen some components say like besides supporting both Android and iOS, there are some that say web as well. So that's a great detail. So looking forward to once everything is really performant and whatnot.
Cool. All right. So that's kind of the first half of the presentation. The second one, I guess that was a good chunk of it. But next one I was going to go over is Firebase, and I actually use that in Flutter. So this is going to be using another plugin because everything is a plugin with Flutter. So this is going to be called Flutter Fire because you also can't have a plugin without having Flutter in the name. So first off, I know we have a few people who aren't really familiar with Firebase, so I have just kind of the official pitch for it. So I'm going to throw that out here real quick, then we can actually get into more interesting stuff. So Firebase is an application development platform with a mission to help app developers succeed by using Firebase products. Firebase accomplishes this by taking common problems and developer tasks that occur during a product's lifecycle and making them easier to solve, be it by providing more information about your apps and their performance, or providing tools to handle complex problems like security and network connectivity when storing data. So Firebase is divided into 3 main categories of tools with specific goals: helping you build better apps by making complex coding processes easier, improving app quality by helping you catch issues early and fixing them quickly, and helping you grow your app by understanding how other people are using it and engaging with them in a meaningful way. So as you can see here, there's like 20 different products. I am totally just going to talk about the coding ones because otherwise it would be like a whole night's thing. So the first feature I want to go over is authentication. This is kind of the root of a lot of our stuff. So it's not really the most flashy feature, but it's the one that hackathon judges are always going to ask you about because they always want to make sure that you have some kind of security in place. And 9 out of 10 times when you're just building a prototype, you're just going to be like, yeah, security. But this is super easy to just kind of throw in and have it available, which is great. So it's going to support things like session login. We call it anonymous login. It really is just a session ID. It's not really authentication. But then there's also email and password, email link, third-party stuff like Google or Facebook, Twitter, GitHub, as well as using phone numbers. So I actually have this up and running, and it's up in my console. So this is the console backend of Firebase for the project that I've been playing with. So we're going to go to authentication. You can see I don't have any users currently logged in here. And let's see. I've got this up and running. We're going to go ahead and just register a user real fast. Oops. Or I'm going to hit back, either way. I'm going to use a super, super secure password. Let's see, so that registered. I'm going to go ahead and refresh. And we should see that email registered. So we can see, hey, I just created this account. It has a UID. This is where we can actually store all of our information for that user based off of this unique ID. And then what we can do here, I'm going to go ahead and just come back this way, sign out real quick. Refresh, blah, 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 blah. I don't think it actually changes anything, but cool. We're signed out right now. So what we can do here, and our super secure password, log in, and oh, I used tab, so there's an extra space. I need to actually trim that. But it'll go ahead and say, hey, you've successfully done everything with your authentication, and it's checking against the password that's already saved in here. So I'm going to sign out again. You can see it's that one that ends in 5.3, which doesn't actually show you the full thing, ends in 5.3. So the other one that I think is really cool is using the email authentication. So I'm going to go ahead and just use password or my email here. If I submit this, what should happen is I'm going to get an email, which is already synced up and whatnot on this account. I'm going to get my little notification because emulators, but that's okay. So this is the no reply email from that project. What this did is it can use dynamic links to actually kind of generate this link that you can use for signing in. So if I click that sign in link, we're going to go ahead and sign in. It's going to bring up my application. And it'll tell me that we've signed in, gives me that same exact session ID. So you don't have to actually remember your password if you want to just send that link over to your email. And then the last one I just kind of show off here, I'm going to sign out again. And we also have sign in with Google. So with just one button click, if they're already signed into Gmail on their phone, this should just bring up a little account linker here. We'll go ahead and sign in there. And then we're now signed in. One of the things that's kind of cool with that too is I'll refresh. Google and like Facebook and all those other identity providers are more trusted than your password and email, just because anyone can type in whatever email and password and whatnot to log in. So you actually see that they've been authenticated with Google, and that's just a little bit higher of a like a trust level. But yeah, we've got all kinds of different options that are in here too. So you can see normal email and password, phone. So if you want to send a text message to actually log someone in, you can also do that. Just all sorts of other stuff. I haven't turned on all of them, but they do exist. And that'd be a whole other talk in and of itself if we really wanted to get into the weeds with that. Cool. All right. So the next one, we have a couple different database options. So there's two of them. I'm going to talk about both of them. The first one is Cloud Firestore, which is a database tool that allows you to group data using a document collection structure for straightforward access. This data is stored and synced between users and devices, plus it supports basic queries in addition to direct data access. The goal of Cloud Firestore is to provide a backend data storage solution without having to go through the whole tedious process of setting up your own database server, authentication schema, REST endpoints, and basically everything else that goes in with dealing with data on the back end, especially if you're a front-end developer and just don't want to. So back to my console here, we actually have our database stuff here. We're going to go into Cloud Firestore first. And I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to sign out too, just to test this real quick. I don't remember if I have authentication turned on or off on this, so we're going to find out. Let's Firestore. Oh, that was right. Yeah, Firestore. So there's currently no data here, but we can go ahead and run a transaction. And that might have not worked for me. We'll see. Okay, here we go. So we just did a whole batch write, added these 19 items. I'm going to go ahead and refresh. For some reason, it's not just showing it live like it normally would. But we can see that all these messages were added in with their own UID, created at, and a message and all that kind of good stuff. So this is kind of your backend for data that you can show here. If we wanted to come through and, let's see. I'm going to go ahead and just see if I can delete this real quick. Delete collection, messages, delete. Let's see. And I probably don't have my listener up for that. That's okay. So there's a few things I need to fix with this, but that's all right. So it's gone. It realizes that all that information is gone. If I had set up my listeners correctly, it would have actually done this live. And then we can just add in independent messages as well, which again, they're just right there. So it's really quick, works well, and you don't have to set up a whole back-end pain to deal with system. Let's see. Which brings us to the second database here, real-time database, which uses a simple JSON tree structure to store and access data. So while it's more lightweight than Cloud Firestore, it still offers many of the advantages, such as real-time syncing, if you code it right, unlike me, offline support, and scalability. Additionally, Firebase real-time database supports the ability to know when users are connected to the database and be used in conjunction with Cloud Firestore, as each of these serves its own unique purposes within your app. So I'm going to go ahead and show this. So this is just the tree that we have right now with all of its messages. If I bring up the app, we'll come over here. Real-time database should show everything. And I'm actually just going to delete these live, and you can see I'm deleting in the structure here, which is pretty cool. I'll just keep doing that. Then we can add them. You'll actually see the message counter come up as well. That's just counting the amount of times that I've clicked on this button. And each of these messages being added in the app or showing up in the backend. And so that's where here I'm just going to show you. So we also have security rules. So you can restrict it to who is able to access everything. So this is a whole other language setup. Basically, I just have it set up so anyone can read and write to this database. But if you wanted to, you can say only if the user is authenticated. Or if you have certain nodes, you want to make sure that the authenticated user's UUID or UID equals whatever the node is that they're messing with. So they can't go ahead and modify someone else's data. So there's all kinds of stuff around that. Super cool. Super easy to use too. I just don't have it on because that's one less thing to break on me. And then since we're here as well, I'm going to go ahead and just bring this up. Let's see. Other file. So this is the sign-on page that we were actually working on for the authentication page. So let's say we wanted to do Google sign-in. It's all just here. Here's the actual UI to show, hey, here's the button. And then like when it says successfully signed in. But the actual sign in with Google method here is basically, hey, get the object, call the sign in method. It'll do everything behind the scenes to actually do the authentication. So as long as the user has Gmail and they're logged in on their device, it'll do all of that for you. It just waits on that thread to finish up. And as soon as that's done, it'll pull up the user and give you that authenticated Google user, which will have their access token and their ID token and all that kind of good stuff, which then you can convert over to your Firebase user, which is going to be universal against whatever other authentication options are out there. So if they're using email and password and then they switch over to Google or Facebook or whatnot, it'll still be linked through that option, which is kind of nice. So you can see how super easy this is to use. And we actually have the Flutter Fire library completely open source as well. So if you want to mess with that, it's great. I actually just updated an example yesterday for using dynamic links for that email link sign-in, which is why I was really excited to show it off because I got it working. But if you go into here and then packages and just pick one, it does have some of the web stuff as well, which is kind of cool. But they have the examples of how you would actually use everything. And then this also has a nice little table to tell you, hey, does it work on the web or not? So kind of lackluster on the website, sorry. But it is being worked on, and as it kind of starts to work more and we get more features added over to the website, it'll be updated here. And then let's see here. We also have the database side of this. So I'll just show you the real-time database. There's these components called like the Firebase animated list. That's actually what was working to kind of give you the animation of it having stuff show up or disappear and whatnot. It just kind of gives it that nice little extra effect. So rather than using a standard list view and dealing with, hey, has my data been added or taken out or whatnot, it's just provided for you, which is kind of nice. And then we also have the listeners and whatnot that are in here, which is all just subscriptions and whatnot. So as values change, it listens for that, and then it just updates the state. Anyway, that was a tangent, sorry. Cool. All right, so the next one is cloud storage for Firebase. So sometimes you need to store data and serve user-generated content like audio and images directly in your app, and it's just not going to really fit with what we have with our little text storage stuff and whatnot for Firestore and real-time database. So that's where Cloud Storage SDK comes in. So it's resumable, which makes it more resilient to changes in network connectivity. So when user's connection is disrupted during an upload, the SDK will automatically handle retrying and resuming, which can be critical when dealing with the kind of network conditions often encountered on mobile devices. Downloading content uses a similarly robust system, allowing users to receive their data once a connection is successfully reestablished. Once the user's content is uploaded, it can be shared with other users of your app using the same SDK. And since you will likely run into situations where only certain users should be able to see or upload specific content, you can use Firebase's security rule system, just like we saw with Firestore and real-time database, to make sure that people are only seeing the content that they're restricted to. Let's see, I'll just skip past this. Here's a GIF of actually everything I would have shown you anyway, where it's just, hey, it's going to generate a text file, upload it, you can see it up in the console, and then re-download it. So I guess I can show you the console aspect of that though, which is kind of cool. Let's see. I think I already have some files in here. I do. Real simple stuff, just a text file. It says hello world. Nothing too fancy, but it's something that you can actually just see, hey, if users want to upload images for profile pictures, or if you have a gallery app, super easy to just store everything here. It'll give you a standard URL that you can display and work with. Cool. All right, so Cloud Functions for Firebase are single-purpose functions that are executed in a secure, managed environment for your Firebase project. They are a powerful tool that lets you handle complex logical operations from within Firebase, such as performing operations on your Firebase database or interacting with various other Google or external services. These are great for handling backend logic and for your app without having to set up a whole complicated backend as well. So if you want to have just background Lambda methods and whatnot, they're there. You can hit with the URL, you can hit with the SDK. You don't have to do too terribly much to set them up. All the ones that I use are always just Node.js. I upload them, and then they exist and they do stuff. So it's kind of nice for any kind of backend logic that you need to throw into place. So this one is seriously just send request. It hits the URL, that gets parsed, and then returns a response, and we just display the response with a little timestamp. And I actually should have probably brought it up, that text file, but that's okay. Shows you the last thing. Kit's a little bit of a touchy subject right now. So we actually just took out the localized version from the Firebase SDK and have it as a standalone. So you don't have to use it with Firebase anymore if you want to just use the local version. We've updated the documentation. Everything is public now. We just haven't done like an official announcement. It's very kind of a quiet change. So it's something worth noting right now that ML-Kit for Firebase doesn't have the local aspect of this anymore. But yeah, that's cool. So what it does contain is basically just a whole collection of visual models. So it includes the ability to scan barcodes, QR codes, what have you, detect faces, label objects and landmarks, or read text. This is all available in the Flutterfire plugin for right now too. So still great. All the cloud ones are still available as well within Firebase. So if you want to do any of these things using a cloud version of the API, which will actually get into more granularity, detection and whatnot, it's still pretty good. So I'm going to just go ahead and pull it up because it's always a fun demo as well. So let's see, we got our picture scanner, no image selected yet. So I'm going to go ahead and add one. I'm going to tell it it's okay to do that. Cool. Here's a picture of one of my chickens with my cat, or one of my cats. So fun little thing with some chickens. Let's see, so I'm going to go ahead and just detect labels. So if we run this, what it's going to do is just going to scan over the image and pick individual objects, or it's going to crash. That's cool. So normally what it would do is it's going to label it and say, hey, it sees a bird or a chair or a cat and what have you. I'm going to give that one more shot just in case, but I might have broken it, but that's all right. This is my last slide, so. Yeah, my computer's calling. It's okay.
We have to sacrifice something for the demo gods.
Yeah, that's all right. So yeah, that's kind of everything I've got. Here are a whole bunch of resources though where you can find out more. We have YouTube channels for both Firebase and Flutter. Twitter is where pretty much any kind of new news is going to be posted. GitHub for Flutterfire is here, as well as Flutter's Code Labs, which has a Firebase Code Lab as well, which is pretty great. The cookbook that I just showed you, as well as the gallery app, which has all the code that you can steal. And then just the official documentation at flutter.dev and firebase.com. There's also my email, so if anyone has super in-depth questions that you want to send me, I will respond there too if you don't want to ask them here. Otherwise, we are available for questions, or I am.
I'll throw one in. With the cancellation of Google I/O this year, do you know of any plans for meetings from Google related to Flutter or Firebase?
So I don't know
any big get-togethers that aren't going to be together?
Oh man, big get-togethers. So I'm not sure on that, but what we actually have, let me see, let me find this tab for you. We actually have these other virtual meetups that we've been doing about twice a week. They're about 40 people at a time, but they're just more little one-off presentations. Let's see, little meetup. That for you. And as for Flutter, I'm not 100% sure on that one. They probably do. It seems like something that they would be doing. Let me pull this over here. Yeah, so we actually have just different presentations that will be given by Googlers, and then people talk from there. Then we also have a big event that I think we're doing it in 2 weeks. We just postponed it from last week. But it's the Firebase Live kind of I/O substitute. But yeah, if you follow on Twitter too, they'll tell you the exact dates for when everything is actually going to be coming along. But I mean, this is kind of your standard what's new in Firebase talk that would have been given at I/O. We're just going to do it through these other things.
Yeah, I think the Android conference was also, or event was postponed a little bit. I don't know how much.
Yeah, that was the next Android launch.
Yeah. And I wonder when and how the Cloud Next gonna happen. Cloud Next also fell for the COVID, unfortunately. I have some technical questions that you showed database rules for the real-time database.
Yep.
And Firestore has similar rules, right? So you can hierarchically secure different paths, right? I don't know if the language, the notation is the same though.
No, I think they're different between real-time database and Firestore.
And maybe also, maybe you mentioned, but so we are talking about Flutter with Firebase, and I know that with Android, Firebase, Firestore provides out-of-the-box, transparent offline support. So if the network goes off, it caches it, the data, and then once it's come back, it sends it, right?
Yep.
Without any extra coding or anything. And is this true for Flutter as well?
Yep. So it's all pretty much, we kind of just bridge into the SDK that's on the native level for it.
That's awesome. Maybe I see you are showing the Firestore.
Yep. So yeah,
rules.
So it's definitely a different language. So we have this one where it's just a little bit more in depth, which is kind of nice. Whereas if you look at the real-time database one, these rules are just going to be very, hey, here's a JSON string. So, yep.
And you showed that you also logged in with the Google user, and then it got merged with the other user. Did you do any extra code for this merging to happen?
Nope. So as long as the username, email, what have you is the same, it'll just kind of know in the background, hey, it's the same person-ish. So hopefully. So it'll just do that. And then the Google one is going to be the one that takes precedence.
Interesting. I know that this is a setting somewhere if you want to merge these or not. And
that I know of, I thought it just did this by default.
I forgot where is the setting though. Probably you know better than me though. I just remember, I remember that I was struggling with this part, the merging procedure. When, for example, if somebody logs in with Twitter with the same email address, then get some exceptions if depending on the setting. But I think this is too much on the tangent lines.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I had to look into that a little bit more in depth. I haven't run into that issue, but it doesn't mean much. I don't know.
Sounds great that you haven't had to write any code for this. That's great.
Yeah, I'm just kind of winging it. So there's definitely cases I haven't run into yet.
That's awesome. Are there any more questions?
Allison has raised a question in the chat about how to run Flutter on the emulator and the mobile app on the phone. I'll throw a quick mention in here that the App Brewery course covers this very thoroughly, and the part of that course, the beginning of it, which covers actually doing these installations and setup steps so you have a working Flutter development environment, that part is free right now.
Let's see. They actually have documentation too. Let's see here.
You know what's really sweet if we are talking about emulators, that since Flutter now has the web support, you can actually fire up your project in a web browser if all of your plugins are web-based. So I've done that with the clock, and that's real fast, even faster than the emulator.
And then the official Flutter Dev documentation also has how do you actually install the SDK, how do you run it on a local device. If you want to switch between a physical device that you have plugged into the computer and the emulator, Android Studio will actually automatically know if you have something else running, and you just kind of do this little drop down and pick between them. Another interesting thing here too is with Flutter, you can actually pull up the iOS simulator and install that. So you don't have to go into Xcode after you've done all your normal setup. So if you're developing for both and you just want to test it, you can just bring that up. It's pretty cool. I'm not going to go through the whole install process because it's going to break on me at this point because it's not super happy about running everything. But yeah, you can actually do that from Android Studio.
Alison is asking the name of that course you mentioned, Robert, App Brewery. She spelled it out there. I don't know if it's proper spelling.
Hang on, I'm trying to get you appropriate links already.
Feel free to post it there.
Yeah. Here's a Medium article which covers the free course. It should have links in there to it. The underlying site is App Brewery. You did spell it correctly, only one word, .co. It's British. Now, when you click on their complete, now I noticed going over there just now that they did not list the free course there. I hope it's still around, but anyway, yep, I'm working on that. I will say that what they are doing with their complete course, which cost or ought to cost about $12, is they've set that up on Udemy. And if you haven't worked with Udemy before, on a bad day, Udemy will say it's going to charge you a couple of $100s for a course. If you wait a week or less, they'll have a sale and it'll become $12.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? I can't explain their business model, but that's the observed behavior. I started actually doing that course on LinkedIn Learning and shifted over to doing it on Udemy because they actually had the 2020 updates and the final module, which covers Firebase, as well as covering state management on Flutter, which is a bit of a big deal when you get past the very simplest. Yep, I'll have links for you in just a sec, Allison.
Yeah, I'm checking it, and the Udemy complete Flutter course is now $13 instead of for 94.99. So it's 86% off right now.
Just a minute ago, it was showing me more than 100, which is just.
I think maybe it's location based, which is interesting.
Actually, that's very likely.
Or maybe they know that I don't have any sessions, so I'm not returning to it because
that would explain it too.
I'm in an incognito browser. Maybe that matters. Use an incognito browser. So I think I was promising a raffle. I don't know if you have, if anybody has any more questions.
So I just want to throw out there too. We actually have a fair amount of free content up on Udacity for courses. That was the one that you mentioned earlier with Angela Yu, where she did one as well.
Udemy, or wait, no.
Yeah, what we talked about is Udemy.
An official Flutter course on Udemy, which is also free. Yeah, and as I recall, was reasonably good, though it may be a little dated at this point.
Yeah, the Udemy is not free for me anymore, but this Udacity is free, right?
Yes, the Udacity one we have for free, and we have a couple of them on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree with Paul that a whole lot of the material on the doc set is outstanding. It's really good. I'm not sure it entirely bootstraps people as well as the App Brewery course does in terms of the nitty-gritty, step-by-step little picky stuff you've got to do in setting up. But it will be more up-to-date. There's no question about that. Even the App Brewery stuff, their latest 2020 stuff, Firebase had changed. I had to wing it a little.
Paul, could you post this link into the chat room?
Yep.
Thank you. Do you have any free course for Firebase like this on Udacity?
Thank you. Let's see. We have some for just like normal Android development. One of the better bets though might be is it here? Codelabs.
Oh, I love Codelabs.
Yeah, they've got excellent Codelabs.
And I'm actually going to be adding a few on here. That's one of my goals for this next quarter is to write a few of these, just so people can start doing more Flutter Firebase stuff. So
rock on.
Yeah, that's great always.
Cool. So were there any more questions, or I guess we can pass it off to Zabe there.
All right. So yeah, just feel free to interrupt me still if you have any more questions. I will take over the presentation. And let's see, my Chrome window. Can you see the wheel?
Yep.
Awesome. So Alison is here. All right. Jay, tell me if you don't see your name. And I looked into my closet, and besides the Dash, so Dash is the mascot for Flutter, I also found a T-shirt, which is a Dart T-shirt. It's from Google I/O, and you can see the Google logo here. And the only caveat, because I could only snatch a free Excel one. So it's a free Excel, but this is genuine Google stuff. So I would raffle these both. Maybe first I'm gonna go with the T-shirt and then Dash. So let's see this. Click to spin. Oh, wait. Something is wrong. I'm so sorry because it lost. I gonna quickly. I'm so sorry about this mix. I don't know where the names went. While there was the presentation, I entered the names. It's fair. So, Jen, Joshua, Daisy.
You don't have to put me in, Chava.
You can leave me out
Yeah,
as well.
same.
I'll save you shipping cost.
No, Robert, you really deserve something. I hope that.
You can remove me.
Say it again.
You can remove me as well.
Oh, really? Are you sure? You deserve something too.
I'm not here to get stuff. Yeah. Plus, I want to give this to people more so that, like, let's say, are new to Flutter or what have you.
Don't feel weird because you are not new. So all right. I mean, I'm really hesitant. Let me check again the names. So Jay is there, Daisy is there. Jan, are you sure?
I'm sure. Employees can't win.
Once more, Joshua, I really don't want to remove you, but if you insist, then I will remove you.
Yeah.
Okay, you stay. You sure? All right, this will give really good chances here. So first, this genuine Google T-shirt goes to Robert. Okay, Robert. So you have the T-shirt, and I don't know what's your size. Maybe you can use it as a pajama.
It'll work. I'm portlier than I like.
It's not that big though. And oh, Allison, I'm sorry, letting Allison back in. I'm waiting for her. There we go. Hi, Allison, back. I'm raffling the items, so I raffled a T-shirt, which went to Robert. Thanks, Robert, for all your help in the chat room and everywhere. Also about Flutter, and here comes Dash. Very good chances. And Daisy got it. Congratulations, Daisy.
Thank you. You can give it to Allison if you want. Yeah, I didn't know she was joining again.
No, you won that. I mean, only if you totally insist, but I'm very happy to give it to you. So thank you so much joining us for tonight. And thank you, Paul, for devoting your time. What's your time zone in Colorado now? You are in Mountain Time, right?
Yeah, we're just an hour ahead.
Hour ahead. So it's getting later there. And yeah, watch out for our schedule. I will put together some materials on Android 11. And there's a slight chance that it's going to be shifted by a month along with the conference. But keep an eye out, and thanks for joining us again. And have a great day, and join other virtual meetings. This is fun. Also, message or me on either Meetup or other channels if you have any more questions. Also, I think Paul had his contact info there about topics. You have any question?
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. It was fun.
It was fun.
Yeah, please, Robert, someone give me your address. You can maybe message on Meetup. And so I'm gonna
Will do.
Ship the T-shirt. And Daisy, if you ever, will you be anytime? No, now it's COVID. So you can also message me your address as well, and I can ship Dash over there. And
Okay,
Allison,
no worries.
Thanks for hanging in there, and feel free to ask more questions if you hit any roadblocks following tutorials. Thank you very much, and have a great evening.
Thank you too. Good night.
Good night. Bye-bye.